Now it's time for our feeling of the week. Overwhelmed. Crimson, what is the definition of overwhelmed?
All right. The official definition is overwhelmed is the feeling that occurs when the demands being placed on you exceed or you feel like they exceed your capacity to meet them.
I feel like we often don't think about or recognize that overwhelmed is a feeling because most of us are just perpetually overwhelmed. It just feels like a state that we have to exist in. But it
Right.
is a feeling, and you're absolutely right. It's a feeling that happens when your demand goes up, but your capacity doesn't. And your body usually notices these things before your mind does. And have you ever had that moment when you're going about your day and maybe it's a hard day and maybe you're just like pushing through and you're struggling through and then something happens and all of a sudden you're on the verge of tears or you realize how tight your shoulders are or you feel like you can't breathe? Those are the moments when like your body's been feeling and managing the overwhelm, usually from a more dysregulated approach because you don't have the capacity to deal with it all. And this is part of how our body keeps us safe, but it really can wreck your day. Because overwhelm actually can feel a lot of different ways in your body. It can be a tight chest, shoulders pushed up. It could be having to like reread the same email 4 times or opening the fridge and closing it and being like, what did I come here for? Or you have 11 things to do and they're all important. You know, you need to get them done, but you do zero of it. And then you call yourself lazy. If this sounds familiar, you are probably overwhelmed in those moments and not really recognizing what's happening to you emotionally.
All of it. I have hit a state of overwhelm that makes me realize that we may live in a constant state, but it still goes up.
Yeah. Overwhelm, I think, is a big part of everybody's day-to-day problem.
We just talked about, I mean, just right now in this last week, like my mom had a health crisis, trying to get back to school stuff, trying to drip like every single moment of joy left out of summer. And then what we're going to talk about in our show and tell. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And you bring up a good point, which is that overwhelm isn't always bad. Sometimes we're overwhelmed with emotion. Like me seeing my grandpa, that was a good experience. I was overwhelmed with emotion, very much so.
Mhm.
Like, it can
Yeah.
happen in good moments too. But we have to be mindful and aware of when we experience overwhelm, not just accept it in a disempowered way. I think this is where a lot of us kind of struggle with overwhelmed. Like, it is what it is, right? And there's
Yep.
always a balance here because sometimes it truly is what it is. And sometimes it's the fact that your nervous system is super amped up because of everything going on around you. And if you find a way to downshift it, you can actually help yourself deal with that overwhelm more effectively in the moment. Because here's the thing that nobody tells you about overwhelm is it's not a failure of your willpower, your motivation, your own abilities. It's literally just a gears mismatch. Like if you are putting things into your system that you are either don't have the capacity to process or just are avoiding processing, or you're just so overloaded that you don't even know how overloaded you are because you're just numbed out and stuck. I think these patterns happen to all of us more than we would like to admit, myself included. Overwhelm might be the most prevalent emotion in our current culture.
I mean, it's at least the one we're discussing the most because I feel like it's universal right now. It's been kind of universal for a while, but maybe it's a generational thing. But I feel like we've been overwhelmed for a decade. And this may be adulting, but my mom is, and she was a very successful career woman. She's always like, I was never this overwhelmed. And so, I don't know, maybe it's our perception, or maybe it's the fact that the world's on fire.
Now it's time for us to talk about our coping skill of the week, which, as I said, is deeply related to the carnival. The idea of the carnival is that you're going to come and we're going to gently trigger you, and then you're going to have the opportunity to practice taking your nervous system from a state of dysregulation and downshifting it back into regulation. Remember, when dysregulation happens, often our nervous system is just trying to protect us, and it views really anything that is uncertain or unexpected or confusing, as well as many additional things, a threat. And so when we expect that we will get triggered in life because that's our nervous system working the way it's meant to work to keep us safe, then we have to learn how to manage it and downshift. And the truth is that you cannot just think your way out of overwhelm. You have to do something a little bit deeper. You got to go into your body because there's part of your brain that is offline when you become dysregulated. And it's the part that really does a lot of your logical thinking. So using that skill isn't really going to be accessible. We need to go into the body first, and that is what downshifting is. So, let me give you an example of 3 different moves that you can take to help your body downshift. One is you can make your exhale longer than the inhale. I know it sounds simple, but that's it. That's the whole trick. So if you inhale for 4, exhale for 8, the heart rate will start to follow your exhale. This seems like, how would that make a difference? But it's really key to the plumbing of your whole system. When you take longer exhales than inhales, it signals to your brain and to your body that there is safety for you to do so. Another way you can downshift is you can soften your eyes and your gaze. When you're stressed, your vision literally becomes like tunnel vision. And downshifting works in the other direction. When you really try and focus your gaze so that you can see everything around you, you signal to your nervous system that it's safe for you to take in the full picture and not just the narrow one. And the final one that I can give you for today is to move something rhythmically. So this can be the bilateral stimulation that we've talked about. This can also be walking, especially if you get your arms going. This helps with getting your heart rate up, but also helps to create that rhythmic movement. Anytime we're doing that bilateral, 2 sides of the body talking to 2 different sides of the brain, it creates more of a natural flow in our state, which also communicates safety. So those are 3 ways that you can quickly downshift your nervous system if you find yourself becoming dysregulated. And honestly, none of those are ones that are in our carnival. So you can only imagine the type of cool approaches, games, skill building that we have in this space where we're really trying to go beyond just the mundane. And although these skills that I presented today seem really simple, the truth is that if you practice them consistently, they will have a considerable impact on your ability to manage your state when you do get triggered, because that happens in life. So that's all for this week's skill of the week.